Ray's Repair Zone. We have a Honda 100R just pulled out of storage, and we're not getting fuel to the carburetor. So what I normally do is I will open the, let me just get a little closer here. There's a drain in the bottom of a bowl. There's a drain screw. I don't know if you can see it. I've got it in my hand. Actually, I took it out, and what that does is it drains the bowl, and I put it on reserve. There is fuel in there, so I'm thinking what happened is the float or the needle get stuck closed, and we're not getting any fuel in here. So I'm just going to give it a couple little taps, and if that doesn't work, then I'll blow it with some air. I'll try it from the drain port. It'll be right here. Well, if that doesn't work, then I give it a little shot in the breather tube. Just kind of, it puts some air into the air pressure into the tank, and what that does, it should force the fuel out. This here is the, if you have water in your carburetor or whatever, like in your tank from condensation, you just supposed to loosen this screw, and it goes down this black tube and it drains it out. Now I took it completely out and nothing's happening. So we have an issue with the carb. What we'll do now is we'll take the carb off. Looks like a 10 millimeter open end wrench and a Phillips, but I always carry my little trusty flat blade screwdriver. I've used this thing every day. I'm using it in my pocket. I've got it stuck in my pocket. So okay, now what you do, you pop that off, unscrew the slide. You just leave it right on the machine. You don't want to disassemble the whole thing. Okay, there's the slide. Okay, that's a slide that lets your air into your engine, and that's your jet needle. And as the way it works when it's idling, it's up here on the fatter part because you got the needle jet inside. And as you crank the throttle, it lifts the slide up, which gives it more air. And as this needle lifts, it gets gradually smaller and smaller, so you're getting more fuel then. This will control the air, this controls the fuel. And they have it down to a science now, because what, 14.7 to 1 fuel air mixture. So that's how they figure this all out. Now if you want to lean it out and make it faster, you can change the jet underneath here. This is a jet needle, and then it's a needle jet down there. Anyway, I'll go get a 10 millimeter. I'll be right back. Okay, with a 10 millimeter wrench, don't just go cranking on it. Hold your carburetor so it doesn't twist this the intake boot. It's quite expensive, actually. I think it's $70 or something here in Canada. Just loosen one. Then you're gonna have to go from the other side. See if I can get it from here. With this ethanol fuel that they have, it's mandated that you have to have so many percent ethanol in your fuel, unless you buy premium. You're constantly cleaning carbs and two-stroke engines, it's hard on two-stroke engines because ethanol doesn't really like to mix well with oil. There's one screw on the other side, it's where the choke lever is. It's kind of a tricky one to get at. And then what I'm going to do once I get this off, the carburetor off, you unhook your fuel line. But shut your fuel off first, just in case it's flowing there. Otherwise you'll have a mess. And shutting your fuel off, it should be straight. The blade should be straight back and forth. Okay, now you should have a little gasket in there or else an O-ring. If it's an O-ring, it's not too bad. The gasket kind of gives a little problem. You gotta be careful. This one has the O-ring, so we're good. Okay, now, if you can see that, I'm just going to take this fuel line right off. I'm pulling it off here. Now don't take that the wrong way. There we go. So here is your carburetor. And wow, I can see what's going on already. With the ethanol fuel, it's only been in there since last year. You can see right in that hole, that's your intake or your fuel line. Nice green stuff. That's why it's not starting. But I'm just going to do a quick one. I'm just going to turn this on quick. Wow, it's not even coming out. And there is fuel in here. So now I'm going to blow it out. What I'll do is I'll go back up here on the vent tube and it'll just pressurize the tank and some fuel should come out. There we go. All kinds of fuel now. Remember what I said about being careful? Make sure it's... Okay, now you got it off and you got it on. Okay, we've got fuel on both ports, so we're going to shut that off now. Now we'll proceed to take the carburetor apart. Now that we have it at the bench, this is my next project here. I'm going to put on a video of putting on a brake rotor, caliper, new brakes on a F-150. So what we're going to do now, we know that it's plugged, is take the bottom bowl off. There's 3 Phillips head screws. We'll just unscrew that. And that should lift off. There should be a rubber O-ring all the way around. Well, if it doesn't want to lift off, you got to give it a little bit of persuasion. Looks like there might be a little bit of sealant or something on there. What I do is I'll just use the end of the screwdriver and give it a couple cracks. Or maybe even a bigger screwdriver or a rubber hammer. There it comes now. You see what we got inside of this? Bunch of goop, probably. Okay, now you see that O-ring there? Be careful not to wreck it or else it's going to leak. There you go. I'm just sliding that along there. Oh, look at that good stuff in there. I don't know if you could see it. All that green crap. That's what your ethanol does. Mixed fuel isn't as bad because the oil seems to keep the gas in good shape. Now see, this is where your slide goes in. That's your intake. And your slide goes here and it blocks this your air going into the engine. And then, remember I told you about the jet needle? Well, it goes through this needle jet here. And that's where it controls your air fuel mixture. And this one here is your other jet for low end idling. So if it doesn't want to idle well, sometimes that's plugged. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this out, unscrew it, because what I want to do is I want to clean all the ports. Yeah, this one is, you could even see, well, you should be able to see through them. This one just got a little tiny pinhole, which isn't good. That's just your idle one, it's smaller. And this one here is the main operation here, the needle jet. And what it does is use your, that's the one that gives you your most fuel when you're operating the throttle. And it's kind of cruddy and crappy too, and there's little tiny holes in here. That's where it atomizes the fuel. And if they're plugged, which a couple of them are, I don't know if you can see it, you're probably not, but there's 6 little holes on one side and 6 on the other, and I got 3 of them that are plugged. Now you should be able to look straight through here where the needle goes. I just go, I'm looking out the window through light and I could see, but I'm going to blow it out anyway after. So now we gotta see why we're not getting any fuel. And this is your float. What this does, it pushes on a little needle and seat right here. As the float comes up, it pushes on that and closes it, and I can see right now it's stuck. It's not doing anything. Usually just a little tiny, like a pin or a O-ring pick could push that out. Remember now, these parts are small, so you don't want to be blowing it and losing it in the mess like I've got here. So I just push that out. See that pin goes out? Pull that out. That's just your pivot point for your, see, I can't even pull this out now because it's stuck. The needle is stuck. Okay, so being that it's stuck, it's got a little tiny keeper on it. I'll just kind of work them around. There. Now that's your floats. And there's all green crap all over it. Now right here you can really tell how much corrosion. You see how green that is? I'm going to get a little closer with my O-ring pick here right away, and it's just stuck. Like, I sure hope I can get it in the picture here. Just a minute. Oh, where are we? Where is my, I don't know if you can see that green crap on the end of my pick. And if you could see right in here, that's your float needle and seat. It shuts off your fuel when it gets enough, and when your engine sucks the fuel down out of the bowl, the floats drop and it lets more fuel into the engine. A lot of people think that this is the end of the world here with all this green crap, but only thing it does is it shuts you down for a little while. You clean all this up, blow it out. You can use a carb cleaner, and since I don't have any, I just use a brake and parts cleaner spray, and then I use compressed air to blow out all the ports. I'm not touching any of the jetting. You got another jet here, idle jet right here. I'm not even touching that. You don't have to. It should be good. What I'm going to do now, since that won't come out, it's in there pretty good, I'm going to take some pliers and I'm going to get it over here and not wreck that little keeper, and just kind of work it back and forth. And there it is. If you can see, that it's got a little rubber end on it, and this is the the float needle, and that's the float seat. And that was stuck in there, so we're not, what we could do is we could blow air through here and it should come out of here now. But I want to spray some cleaner in it, and then I'm going to clean this all up, put it together, and a couple kicks, she should be running. It's using a non-chlorinated clean flow brake and parts cleaner. Still, you got to be careful with it with plastic parts. You might eat them up. What I like to do is, if you're handling this kind of chemical or whatever, I like to put on something that your body's not going to be absorbing. So I just spray it around in the slide tube, I guess you'd call it. And I'll spray it on the, see how it's working that off like nothing. Spray it in every jet hole. And then also, don't forget, you have to clean this bowl up too. You don't have to soak them overnight or nothing like that like we used to. If you can get air through it, generally gonna work. And you make sure it's all clean though. You don't want to lean out your engine. If you just have a little tiny hole in there that's not a little brass brush, what I do is I just kind of clean it out. And if they charge you, when you're at the shop and they charge you shop supplies, well, you kind of know why, right? Because we're using shop towels, we're using chemical sprays, we're using stuff like this, and they don't last forever. They wear out. You use them up. So that's kind of the general thing that they do in shops. Hey, buddy. Okay, now I'm going to blow this off of here. You can see the green crap coming off here, but I'm going to blow it out. It might be a little noisy. What I do is I blow in all the holes around here, and make sure this one here is your fuel, and should come out right there where your float needle is. But anyway, I see it's quite bad in here, so where is my pick? Right here. I just cleaned that out. I don't know if you can see all the green crap from there. That's your ethanol fuel for you. Now I'm going to spray some more down in there. Now what I'm going to do is I've got some little tiny brushes, the jet cleaner kit. Actually, a friend of mine, he had it and he said he wasn't going to use it, so he let me have it, and I'm very thankful that he did. Now there's some brushes for different size of fuel line, fuel holes, or whatever, ports, and you just find the one that you think is going to work, just like a bore brush. And what this does is you just scrubs it on the inside. I guess it's like a pipe cleaner too, right? Nobody uses pipes anymore, but you can still buy them for crafts. But I just go in there and I clean up all this stuff. And I'm going to blow out the idle jet. You'll be able to feel it inside here. Yep, it's coming out right here. Just blow out everything you see and make sure there's air coming out. So basically I'm done with that part. See how green that sucker is? Now it cleans that off like nothing. There's a little rubber end on here, so on the needle. So you got to be careful. Make sure it's not going to eat that, whatever chemical you're using, it's not going to eat that rubber. Because if it does, you're going in to the Honda shop to find another needle, a float needle. Thing is too, if you don't use your bike enough, fuel's going to evaporate, gonna create this green sludgy junk. Common for nowadays. Well, this one's kind of an important one to clean too, because if there's too much sludge or buildup or inside, that's where your needle goes. Actually, it goes in this tube for your needle jet. And if it's too small, then it's running too lean, right? That means it's getting more air and not enough gas. Not getting the proper fuel mixture. Now I want to clean out these little holes here. If you don't do that, your bike's not going to run right. Okay, I see what's going on here too. They're graduated step too. They get smaller and smaller and smaller as you go from idle. Then as they go to full throttle, they get bigger. So I have to use my acetylene tip cleaner, because this one doesn't go small enough on this guy anyway. And this guy, yeah, I think it might do the trick. Yeah, it will. So now we know those are clean. Of the jet. Spraying that all out. And then I'll blow the fresh air. You can still see the residue on here because it's not nice and shiny, but if you use the bike, it'll wash that down and clean it up. Now I'm putting this back in. This is the needle jet. And don't tighten that very hard or tight, because you'll strip that. That's just aluminum. So that's one good thing they should know. Looks like this float needle's good enough. Now I'm going to clean up the float here. I'm just going to give it a little rub down. And don't bend this little tab right here, because when you bend that tab, what that does is it controls your on and off for your fuel. your fuel level in your bowl, so don't get too wild with that. I don't know if you can see that little tiny dot there. That's where this float needle rides on. It's kind of like spring loaded, but just from vibration and stuff, and plus the fuel going up and down, and it working, it wears on your float adjustment tab, I guess you'd call it. You don't want to have chunks inside like that. We'll have to clean out that bowl. Otherwise it'll get stuck in one of your jets and you could have a lean situation, and then it could burn down your engine. I find 4-strokes are not as critical as 2-strokes, but still, you got to look after your engine. And look after your engine, it isn't going to run for long. The fuel mixture is quite important. Let's see what we got going on here. What I like to do is test fit it and make sure it's going to open and close nicely. And this one doesn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a brush into that. If it's stuck open, then you're flooding all the time. It could be this jet or not the jet needle, the float needle is stuck open, or your floats have sunk. Now what that means is they're not buoyant anymore. And what they'll do is they'll absorb the fuel and then they'll sink down, which causes your needle to stay open all the time. So that's another thing you could look at. If it's flooding all the time and this isn't stuck, take this and put it in a little cup of gas, and if it floats, you're good. If it doesn't, well, you need a new float. This needle has to move up and down nicely. Well, it's good now, because it'll turn on and off it'll let fuel in the bowl, and it'll thing is with these things, they got to be just straight too, otherwise they kind of bind. Now, you might not think it's important, but your pivot pin, that should be clean. You're going to take this jet out. We're going to put it on this little square tab here with the little tiny keepers. See, now it'll hang there. And you just drop it in place. Then your pivot pin for your float, just push it through there. That's all it is there. Now we still have this idle jet to clean, and now you just drop it in there, tighten it up snug, don't over tighten it, because this stuff could be stripped pretty easily. Brass and aluminum is not very strong. What would you want to call that thing? Deflector? What it does is just, so your fuel's flopping around in the bowl when you're driving your bike. It kind of keeps a spot. It's like a pickup tube. That's what I would call it. And this one, I don't want to spray it because it's plastic. I don't know what'll happen to it. I don't plan on going to town for this. Probably don't have it anyway. See what happens here. When you have that lined up, you got your drain right here. And that goes into your drain screw right here. And so, yes, we have to have it that way. You watch out, my boy. You don't want this stuff in your eyes. Go out. Go. You go. Now open up your drain for your bowl. Just going to open that up. There you go. Now it's draining better than it was before. There's a Loctite gasket eliminator. It's a 518 flange sealant. It's good for aluminum, and I find that it works out great for this too. For sealing this, just a little skim, that's all you need. I'll just give it a little skim around here and make sure there's no hard lumps. This stuff doesn't set up like silicone. It'll come off easy next time. And I'll put it back together. Make sure that little slot in that fuel director or pickup, whatever, matches that. There you go. These ones you could tighten up a little. They can take a bit of torque. You don't want your bowl leaking. Okay, by the looks of it, we're going to put the slide and needle jet in first. Now, if you see this here, and there's a little ramp, that's where your idle screw is. So you make sure there should be a hole or a pin. Yes, there is right here, a brass pin on the side in the carburetor. You make sure you line that up, and it should go in and slide in nicely. Otherwise, like, that's in the right position. If you had it turned a little bit, you're gonna wonder, well, what the heck? How come I can't get the slide in? It's because you don't have it in the right position. See, it won't go for me now. I just give it a little turn. Pull it out because I'm still off. There you go. Now it's in. Otherwise, if you do that and put it in and put on this cap and kick the thing over, it will rev like you wouldn't believe. Because it's basically wide open throttle then. Okay, so now I'm going to hook up the fuel line. Now I'm just going to bend this intake rubber out. Throw this guy over on the other side here. I think this goes down by the mono shock. That one is a little bit harder to get out. I'm going to go to the other side. And you don't crank one wide open or right tight until you get them both kind of in the same position, same torque on each side. Otherwise it'll kind of, you could wreck your flange on your carburetor. You can see the boot moving, so there's one tight. Now we'll put on the intake boot. From the breather to the carburetor. And tighten up this little clamp.